Hello friends, welcome back for another video. So I've been saying this for a while that I was going to do an anime video on like all of my favorite anime. I'm going to do the top 5 thing, but realistically I feel like that's not enough to actually fit in like really good anime or what I think is really the best anime. So Ranma, as all of you know, is my #1 favorite anime, hence my name on everything, right? And because of that, I'm not going to count Ranma in the top 5. We will just give it like number 0. Like you guys already know that Ranma is my favorite. So I can get into why it's a good story, but I probably would want to make my own video on why Ranma is good, like a personal one. Now, the other ones, obviously the ones that I'm going to mention are going to be my other top 5. If for whatever reason you feel like you want to know more about that story, or you want some spoiler review, or maybe you just want me to talk about more in depth why these stories are like really good to me, I can do that. Just leave a comment or something like that. But anyway, none of these are going to be in a particular order because I like all of these rather equally, I would say. So the first one we're going to talk about is a little bit old, is Katekyo Hitman Reborn. So this story was really good. When I first came across it when I was younger, you know, it's basically about like a kid where he's got to become the mafia boss, but he doesn't really want to. It's kind of like his destiny in a weird way. It's like a traditional shonen, and it's really old, so that's kind of what it was for. But I will say that unfortunately the anime did not finish. So the manga for this, I actually finished the story in the manga. It's excellent. Like I loved this story a lot. I think the mafia theme is really cool because, you know, you have One Piece for pirates and Naruto for ninjas, but nobody really leaned in on the mafia super hard back then, and this was that story. And I think it did it really well. And I love power-up shonen. Unfortunately, usually those don't have the best stories. But this one had a really good story. And there's a really huge thing that they do at the end on like the final chapter, where everything just comes full circle. And I wish I could spoil it, but I'm not going to. But that was like pure genius, like story writing to me. And you know, you have stories that try to achieve that, kind of like how Bleach ended. You know, for those of you that read the manga, Bleach didn't really hit the way it intended to, but like this story definitely did. So definitely give that a try if you are looking for a good recommendation. Most of the anime that I'm going to be talking about, you will have to read them at some point because a lot of them kind of got screwed over in production and development, where the anime didn't either finish the story or it's not done yet, or for whatever reason the script went crazy. The director for the anime didn't care about the source material and the story was bad for the anime. So I'll mention that as we go, obviously. The next story I wanted to talk about, the Monogatari series. I'm sure a lot of you have experienced it. Monogatari is split up into parts. It's kind of like Fate Grand Order, where like things are in different, basically it's not in like chronological order, but yeah, Monogatari, every part for Monogatari, all of it's excellent. It's very dialogue heavy, and from what I've heard from like people like Joey on Trash Taste, he talks about like, well, he's used to be called the anime man, but he talks about how like there's so much context and subtext when you're watching the show in Japanese that he's not sure how people that don't understand the language can enjoy it as much as we do. But I don't know, like I'm probably missing 50% of the show, and it is that good. Like it's one of the best anime I've ever watched, and it was so good that I actually stopped like consuming it for a long time. Like I've put a lot of it to the side, and I've said, okay, I'm not gonna continue this series until years later because I'm afraid I'm not gonna run into a show that's as good as this one. So I actually just stopped watching it altogether. So there are parts that are probably out or came out within the last 2 or 3 years that I can't even give you an opinion on because I just didn't watch it. You know what I mean? Like that's just how it is. So okay, then you have Noragami. Noragami is my next one. I love Noragami. I love the idea that like you have the gods in the world where like they basically have to work hard to be remembered and stuff because otherwise they'll cease to exist. But also like you have our main character Yato. He's just a lot of fun despite being like the type of god that he is and struggling to be praised and worshipped and remembered. His interaction with all the other characters is really good. And unfortunately I can't talk too much about that story just because a lot of the context can just spoil it. But Yato is just a deity trying to find his place as one and like kind of prove to himself that he is also that god that he believes himself to be. And it's not that he isn't a god, it's more so all of the other gods have followers. They have churches and shrines and everything else. He doesn't have that. So he does like odd jobs to keep the people like kind of knowing that they can rely on somebody or believe in him. So like, you know, he does therapy stuff. He'll clean bathrooms for people. It's really silly, but it's a very good show. And unfortunately, I'm not able to give you like enough information on it to really sell it to you. So I would just say, hey, go to like whatever website you can, search up Noragami, watch a trailer or something, get invested, get into it. It's a great story. 7 Deadly Sins. I love 7 Deadly Sins, and we all know what happened when the studio that was animating it had the rights given to somebody else. And I'm not here to judge anybody's art or animation. However, what I will say, once you hit the end of season 2 for 7 Deadly Sins, you're going to want to go read the manga. The manga, excellent. The story, it's great. I love stories where the characters are super OP. And everything in the story is like very power up and everything. But it's like balanced in this weird way where like, well, everything is OP, so nothing is really OP, right? It's kind of how like One Piece is, where all of the characters in One Piece are so wacky and powerful that like none of them stand out on a scale where it's impossible for this person to lose, right? But 7 Deadly, if you're looking for that power fantasy story where like all the characters are fun and enjoyable and they all have their own backstories and everything, it's definitely the manga that you want to like check out. It's definitely the anime that you want to spend time watching. It's very good, and honestly, I love the entire ride. Like, I finished it. I haven't read the like King Arthur bit, but I definitely intend to at some point. The next one I'm going to talk about is probably like the higher on the list for like what I really like. So Akame ga Kill is the only manga to this day that I feel like I've read that was so like mature, despite doing all the like, you know, very shonen like power up things and tropes that I enjoy. It's such a deep story. I don't think I've read anything darker than this, to be honest. Like, you have things that get close, like The Promised Neverland. This is another anime that, like, you know, the manga is where you have to go because the anime got screwed over. But The Promised Neverland is very, very good shonen. But in the same way, you know, I just never realized, like, oh wow, this story is just a lot darker than I could have expected. And the anime doesn't really do it justice. There's a lot of fan services like SDS and stuff like that. But Akame ga Kill is probably one of the best mangas I've ever read. Personally, I put it as the best manga I've read just because it does everything I would want a manga to do. It's intense. There's very varying plot themes going on. Each character has a purpose despite whether they survive or not. There's no plot armor in anybody. Like, everything, even the main character, he struggles with so much. And there is not a point in this story where I feel like there is something that he will run into that he'll never have to worry about. Everything is a risk, everything is a challenge. All the characters could be taken out tomorrow, or they could succeed. You never know what's gonna happen until you finish it. And it didn't have a, you know, the ending, some people might feel like it's a bad ending, some people might feel like it's a good ending. Personally, I felt like it's an ending that made sense for the story, and it was satisfying, at the very least to me. So, I definitely say you want to check that out. Now, I'll give some honorable mentions here just because, like, I've never done, like, an anime video before, and I have hundreds of opinions on it. I've been watching anime since I was, like, super young, but I would say, obviously, Demon Slayer, extremely good show. They call it Peak Saga now, but Vinland Saga, I slept on Vinland Saga heavy. Extremely good show. Okay? Extremely good. Promised Neverland, very good. And obviously I say these honorable mentions because these are stories that would be on this list. But the only reason this 5 is on the list is because personally to me, I resonate with these 5 stories with also Ranma, right? The 6 of these stories I resonate with personally. However, I cannot deny how good Promised Neverland is, Demon Slayer is, Jujutsu Kaisen, you know, like, these are some really powerful stories. Vinland Saga is extremely good. Honestly, you know, this is going to sound like a hot take, but I'm debating right now. Vinland Saga might be the best anime to ever exist, okay? And it's really close. It's really close. One Piece is, like, challenging it right now, but obviously One Piece, like, I don't have to tell you about that though, right? Like, you already know that's really high on the list for a lot of people. So those are going to be my honorable mentions, but I definitely think if you haven't already, definitely check these out. So I'll say them all again. Katekyo Hitman Reborn, whole story, great. Monogatari series, still being updated, amazing. Noragami, I believe the manga might have finished. I need to go back and check, but even if you just experienced the anime, great story. Seven Deadly Sins has finished, amazing story. Akame ga Kill, probably one of the best stories I've experienced. It is, you know, a little bit of a warning though for this story, because it really does get into dark themes. You do want to be careful and not dive into it if you can't stomach some of it. Now, I know some of you are psychopaths. Some of you have like read Berserk and stuff that I wouldn't even read, like Gantz. Like I refuse to finish Gantz, but so if you can stomach that sort of stuff, then you could probably handle a Akame ga Kill pretty easily. But yeah, that's just my take on it. Anyway, thanks for watching. I know this is probably a really short video and I'm so sorry about that, but if you have any of these stories that you want me to give more of an opinion on, just let me know in the comments. And anyway, catch you next time.